Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much on behalf of Supercom for coming out tonight to listen to the employment training plan component of the East-West High project. I'm feeling very confident in saying this. I think you'll be pleased to see the opportunities for young and old, and that this project is going to offer Bingtakong community members. Again, I'm pleased to say that 2 of your members have already benefited by this project, and there's many more to come. My name is Sam Sobush. I'm a member of the Red Rock Indian Band. I'm the project coordinator. And tonight with me, I have a member of your community, a tremendous asset to this project, Robert Starr. He's the project administrator. We're also going to have a couple more of your community members participate in tonight's presentation. Your board member, Joe Moses, and your chief, Duncan Michano. So I'll be doing a little bit more speaking here later on in the presentation, but at this time, I'd really like to turn the floor over to Chief Duncan Michano.
Great, Sam. I guess this project started probably 4 or 5 years ago when the Ontario government put out submissions to build that East-West Tie, and that was through the Ontario Energy Board, the OEB. Originally, the 6 communities had been, actually there was 5, Fort William wasn't in originally, had teamed up with Brookfield and Ontario Hydro and put in a submission. And both that company that we were joined up with and Nextbridge put in a submission, and Nextbridge won the submission basically by what we figure is lowballing their bid. We're seeing that now. But anyways, they got awarded the contract and or the project, and the 5 communities basically took them to court because there was no Aboriginal participation in the Nextbridge submission. The 6 communities, the 5 communities won that court challenge, and we're now part of that project. And we have between the 6 communities now, Fort William joined in later, we now have 20% ownership. And what you see on the slide that Robert has here is basically a description of BLP, Bamkashkwara Limited Partnership, and that's the ownership side of things. These 6 communities own 20% of that line. I won't get into any of the details about how that's going to be paid for. Needless to say, it's not going to cost any of the communities any money whatsoever. We'll get revenues back when that thing goes on stream and the loan is paid off. We'll get a certain amount of money right off the bat as soon as it goes on stream, and when the loan is paid off, we'll get more money. I'm just going to point out some of the differences here, because people have probably been hearing about BLP, Bamkashkwara Limited Partnership, and Supercom. And a lot of people, from what in their conversations, think those are the same, one and the same, but they're not. BLP basically is the ownership, and that's the ownership that's owned by the 6 communities. Supercom is a commercial entity that was created to help build this this line, and that's all it was designed for. They're partnering up with a lot of different companies to I guess get the capacity to create the opportunities for training and stuff like that. And Sam and Robert are doing a good job in getting that training going. They'll do a slide presentation here showing some of the timelines and where that goes. I just want to point out here where those the separations are. And Bamkaswada, BLP. Those are the 6 nations: Pick Mobert, Red Rock, Pace Plat, Mishpecot, Pick River, and Fort William. So we own 20% of that line. Supercom Industries basically is the entity that's been created with those 6 communities to assist and to have participation in the actual construction of the line. And when the construction of the line is done, they'll move on to other things. So I'm going to let these guys go through their presentation.
Thank you, Chief. It's my pleasure now to invite your board member, Joe Moses, to come up and speak and explain a little bit about the project.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out. It's a good turnout to see so many faces out here. Dunk gave you a little bit of an overview of what Supercom is and how we're related with the various communities. I want to get a little more specific with you, talk to you a little bit about what is the east-west tie transmission line. I'm sure there's a lot of questions about what this project is. And more importantly, what is Supercom and why are we here? So as Duncan mentioned, we are 100% First Nations owned. We're a separate commercial entity. We are owned by the communities, but we are not the communities. When Duncan talks about BLP, that board, that is owned by the communities and represents the communities as an owner of the line. Supercom is a commercial business, and our role is to build the transmission line. I'll explain a little bit about why that separation is needed and why it's important for us to have 2 different groups working on this project. So we are 100% owned, partnership between Fort William First Nation, Red Rock Indian Band, Pace Plat First Nation, Bigtagong Nishnabeg, Pick Mobert First Nation, and Mishpecot First Nation. So the general corporation, it's a little bit, you hear general corporations, GPs, LPs, they're all sort of the one and the same, but Supercom is the entity. So we're the collective groups that are impacted by the project, which is a hydro line that the government is proposing to build from Mishpecot to Fort William. So where is this transmission line? So down here, you've got Mishpecot First Nation near Wawa. It's going to come up through White River, back into Pick River and Marathon, make its way through Terrace Bay along the lake shore. That's the red line that you see. So the 6 First Nations that are part of Supercom and BLP, we've all got overlapping and existing traditional territories. Mishpecot and Pace Plat, I believe, are the only communities that the line actually goes through their reserves, but we do have traditional lands on these areas. So what is this transmission line? One of the reasons why hydro prices are so high in Ontario, particularly Northern Ontario, is because we have old infrastructure. The stuff that we have was built many years ago. And if you think of energy as moving from one place to another, so if transmission, all this energy is going to move from east to west, hence the east-west tie transmission line. If you think about trying to put a energy as being a marble, and you're going to put that marble through a garden hose, that's a certain amount of capacity. That marble represents a certain amount of energy. But if you want to start transferring tennis balls, larger amounts of energy, you're going to need a bigger hose, so bigger capacity. So it's like replacing a garden hose with a fire hose. So when we have more capacity and there's more ability to transfer that energy back and forth, it makes the grid more stable, there's less outages, it allows for future generation projects. It's the transfer of energy back and forth on a broad scale. So that in a nutshell is the purpose of why we need this transmission line. And the government has said this is a priority project. So they have what's called an order in council that was passed last year by the Ontario government, which basically says when they go to do these types of large scale projects, there's always the chance that the government agencies can kick back to the government, the voted government, the elected government, and say, you don't need this. It's too expensive. They can give you all these reasons and they can push it back. So the legislative assembly, that is the provincial government, passed what's called an order of council, which said, we've done a needs analysis. This is necessary. It's needed. We've done a cost analysis. It's worthwhile for the taxpayers of Ontario. It's a priority project. So that order of council means that the operating side of government cannot come back and oppose that project. So it's a priority project in the province. So it's going to move forward. So where are we at? As Duncan had said, there's a lot happening out there. The Ontario government that you elect says, what is the priority that's needed? We've identified that this infrastructure project is what is required. They have a whole bunch of agencies out there, the Ontario Energy Board, the Independent Energy Service Association, IESO, whatever the heck their name is, OPG, the Ontario Energy Board, the MOECC, Hydro One. You've got all these corporations that represent Ontario's energy infrastructure and how they manage these projects. So what happens is, I'll go to the next slide in a moment, but as a collective, the government and its various agencies started back in 2010 with planning. So they looked at how much capacity is needed, load forecasting, do we actually need it? Are there alternatives to this line? What are the system studies that are out there? Does it align with all of the government policies that are out there? So as they progress, this is tasked by the Ontario Power Association and the Ministry of Energy. So it's a government saying, we need to plan to make this project. Is it feasible? So they determine, yes, it is feasible. So they start to develop this. This is when they start to say, okay, we need this transmission line. What the heck does it look like? What do we need to do in order to make this a possibility? So they have to start to engage with First Nations stakeholders, different environmental stakeholders. They have to start looking where they build this line, so on and so forth, and what is the detailed costs required. At this point, the government says, this is public dollars. We have to go to market and we have to get competitive pricing. So they go out to market and these companies bid on this job. Duncan mentioned that Hydro One in our communities put in a submission, were unsuccessful. They essentially sued the company that did win in order to get a seat at the table for you. Where Duncan says that you have 20% ownership in the transmission line collectively. You got that through your chiefs, your councils fighting for that position for you in owning that asset. So the successful proponent that is developing this project is who we call NextBridge. And NextBridge is a partnership which I'll go through in just a moment as well. Once they develop this project, they've submitted their bid, they start to get approvals. This is the stage where we're at right now. So most recently, the company NextBridge filed what's called a leave to construct, which means they said, we've done all our homework, we've got our partnerships in place, we've checked all the boxes, here's our final submission, we're ready to start building now. So we're looking to start build date Q4 2018. So we're a few months away, few years, about 14, 18 months away from them starting to get into construction. And the power on date is in 2020. So this is going to be a very narrow frame of when this thing is going to get built. So I'll just go to the one last slide here and reiterate a little bit more of what Duncan had spoke about. So the ownership is comprised of, as Duncan said, this group of companies included NextBridge and BLP, Bam Kashwada. That is your sole owner. So NextBridge has this task to say what's called an EPCM contract. So they have to engineer it, design it. They have to procure the materials. So they have to go out and buy all the materials that are required to build it. They have to construct it, and then they have to maintain it afterwards. So it's like a 80-year contract that NextBridge will own and operate that line. So the total price tag on that piece of infrastructure is about $1.2 billion. That's how much we're looking to see invested in Northern Ontario over these next couple of years. Of that $1.2 billion, the construction dollars that are going to be required to actually build that is around the $600 to $750 million range. So our chiefs looked at that. They said, hey, there's a lot of money in that $600 to $750,000 of building. We want a piece of that. Now, because they're public Ontario dollars that are funding this project, there's a conflict that arises if Dunk and his team build that line because they're part of the ownership group. So they created a separate commercial entity called Supercom, which I sit on the board, and we founded the organization, a group of my colleagues who Rob will introduce to you soon. But we started this board, and we were tasked with the mandate to build the transmission line, go create partnerships, go create jobs, go create opportunities for the communities, get involved in a major way. So we were very happy to say that of $450 million worth of available contracts, we were able to secure and promise about 125 million of those to ourselves and our various partners. Included in those are numerous businesses, numerous partners, clearing and access, camps, catering services, security, a whole whack of them, which we can deliver in another presentation because it's about the commercial side of the presentation. What we want to focus on this evening is the opportunities to people, the opportunities for jobs, employment, training, because that's the first thing that needs to come into place. If we don't have people to fill the company's jobs, we don't have companies, we don't have partnerships. So we'll do subsequent presentations to speak to you about the commercial opportunities. But of those groups, we created essentially 15 different partnerships. So we created 15 new companies, joint ventures between Supercom and various companies that are out there. So the general contractor, the one that's going to build this line, we have a partnership with them. We have a partnership with a camps catering company. We have a partnership with a security company, so on and so forth. So there's 15 of those partnerships that get us a total of $125 million roughly in set-aside business. That's to be shared across our 6 communities. As part of those commercial arrangements, we have commitments from those companies to provide jobs, training, and education opportunities for all our people. And that's where the meat and potatoes of today is, because that's where this most affects you. Again, we'll come back, we'll deliver more presentations on the commercial side, but you'll learn tonight that we're under a very strict time frame to get going on this if we're going to have our people participating on this project. So that is where we, as a board, hired 2 very exceptional leaders to work with us, Sam and Rob, and they have done an exceptional job over these past couple of months of coordinating numerous partners, numerous opportunities, working with numerous companies to provide so many opportunities for jobs and training and employment for our people. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Rob, who will guide you through what those opportunities are.
You gonna drive? Okay. All right, thank you everyone for coming out. We'll go through this spiel. This is probably the 40th time Sam and I have done this. Since the beginning of June, we've traveled all across Ontario, presenting to various ministries, various industries, various union people. And finally, we're getting to wrap up with getting to the communities. So to introduce who Supercom is, put a face to the company, we're represented by Ed Collins in Fort William, Matthew Dupuis in Red Rock Indian Band, Ginny Michano in Pace Plat, our own Joe Moses here in Pick River, Norm Jarling in Pick Mobert, and John Kimbell in Mishpecotton, and then Sam and I as well. Our job is to roll out and engage the communities with what we're referring to as the strategic training plan. And what this was done was back in 2008, 2010, when that planning section that Joe explained, Hatch Engineering, whatever they're called, they conducted a feasibility study, and they said if the east-west tie was to be built, what would it look like? And there's a 50,000-page document available online for you to go and peruse. But basically what Supercom did was they took that feasibility study and they picked a target, because he needed to pick a target to set a budget. And they said, what does 20% Indigenous employment look like on this project? So they sat down with Confederation College and they thumbed through that feasibility study, and they came up with a target of 170 to 244 people, positions, careers to be created through this project. And they then further said, well, how would we do it? And they came up with a strategy that has evolved over 4 different stages. Tier 1 being energy readiness, personal career development, taking 244 people across the 6 Supercom communities and getting them ready to work, understanding that we may have to start with people that have no skill, no ambition, no drive, tons of barriers. How do we get them to cross the line and into jobs? So they developed an energy readiness training program, which gets you ready to work in the industry. And there's also a personal career development program that looks at, how do I write a resume? How do I get up every day? Taking a look at basic life skills in terms of helping people go from 0 to hero in 3 months. Tier 2 and 3, you start getting into your more occupational specific training and the skilled trades that are available out there. Anywhere from security guard to heavy equipment operator to mechanical harvesting to chainsaw. Somebody's got to cut the line, right? Somebody's got to climb those cliffs. We all seen the territory. It's not pasture. I mean, it's not farmland we're going to be going through. Right up into linesman technicians, electricians, people working towards becoming journeyman carpenters, tradespeople. And then finally, continuing to assist those individuals with the company onboarding, taking a company like Sodexo and offering the opportunity to work with them to help our trainees transition to become employees. Whether they have company-specific type of policies or procedures that they got to go through, the supports that we're going to put in place will carry on until the person walks through the door in Pick River to get assessed till they start work out in the job. And probably even with then we would follow them for a little while just to make sure that they're properly supported. So Joe alluded to a couple of important timeframes. That same feasibility study lays out a construction plan and says it's going to take about 2 years to build, 2 years and then some. So based on that order in council, that order in council says this line will have power flowing through it no later than January 2021. Well, with the 2-year construction window and working backwards, we know that construction of this line is going to start November 2018, next year. We have roughly 13 to 14 months to get people through energy readiness, life skills, basic career, as well as through the Tier 2 and Tier 3 training, which is your Level 1 apprentice for, say, carpentry is a 16-week course. There's not much time after you look at that. There isn't much time after to get them through Tier 4, to get their hiring and onboarding on. When Sam and I first started back in June, Tier 1 was going to be delivered in September. We would have been 3 weeks into Tier 1 already, but through delays and through other things outside of our control, we've had to compress it to where we're at right now. And where we're at right now is in the project planning, and we've actually just got approval on Monday. Thank you, Chief Duncan. I don't know when you actually signed it, but I know it wasn't Monday. Was it this morning? Thank you. So industry and government have come together to give us the money to actually hire 7 student success advisors, training coordinators, or whatever we're calling them this week, to be in the community to start the assessment process, to find those 244 people in our communities to start this training. And we've got enough time that if they require academic upgrading, the time is there. If they need, just to throw it out there, I've always used electrician because Sam's a master electrician. For that apprenticeship, you need your grade 12, you need your grade 12 math, you need your grade 12 physics. If you're thinking about along those lines and you need help, that's what the next 5 months are going to be for. We'll be working with the colleges, and we're also going to be working with the private high schools that are associated with AETS, which is Pick River, and with Fort William First Nation to allow people to achieve their grade 12 where possible. There's 2 streams of upgrading. There's the collegiate one, which is going through college and doing literacy and numeracy upgrading. You get your GED. These are Con College programs. The Con College issues the GED. You can get into it if you meet their minimum requirements and you succeed along the way. That GED is not always transferable, and that's our issue. So Sam and I are promoting the grade 12 route. A grade 12 is acceptable anywhere. Anywhere in Canada, anywhere in the United States. A grade 12 is a grade 12 is a grade 12. We want to see the bulk of our people go that route, because if they decide to go somewhere else after, they're not hamstrung back to us. They can go on. They can go to a Cambrian college. They can go to a university in Alberta. They're not tied to a college GED. That also brings money back into the communities, and that's the vision that Sam and I are all about. Supercom is about getting as much economic activity out of this project as possible. Sam and I are all about bringing it as much possible back into the communities. So utilizing community structures that are already in place is very important to what Sam and I are doing. So those are the current list of streams of jobs that we believe are easily attainable, because our population and our demographics are showing us that. Not only that, but Joe and his group at the board level, they've negotiated set-asides from the general contractors for those trades. Once the general contractor is signed, we'll be able to put the actual employer beside each box. We will know who will be employing carpenters. We'll know who will be employing the environmental monitors and how much positions will be there for certain. But this right now is everyone's best guess based on the feasibility study and some of the work that's been done already in terms of contract negotiation. Those positions will exist. Where, we don't quite know yet, but Sam and I have been hitting some pretty big milestones and successes already in filling some of those. So that's our timeline. Some things to take away from this is the inability to really lose anybody. You're going to start Tier 1 on a Monday, you're going to graduate on a Friday, start Tier 2 and 3 on Monday. You're going to graduate from that on a Friday, start the next tier on Monday. You're going to graduate from that, you're going to go to work on Monday. If the planets align, which we hope they will, the general contractor will be named in the next few days, you'll probably actually know who you're going to go work for before you start Tier 1 in January. You'll know what job you're going to. You'll know what your hourly rate of pay is. You'll know what your compensation package is. And if the design is as accurate as we think it is, you'll know when and where you're going to be working along the line for the next 2 years, at what camp you're going to be at, which community you're going to be close to. Everything's set in place to fall in line pretty good here, and we think that we're pretty accurate with this. So in terms of numbers, looking at that plan and looking at those positions, we think we're going to need 18 basic line cutters, or we're going to provide the opportunity for 18 people to take basic line cutting, 15 security guards, 18 remote camp cooks, and that's a culinary art. That's a Red Seal journey. You become a chef. That's the pathway you start with this. Surface diamond driller is a little bit of an oops, but we're leaving it in there so we can keep the money. Yeah. Remote camp support, environmental monitoring, heavy equipment operators, 10 people surveying, 10 people mechanical harvesters. We know we're going to be using machines to cut the line, but we also know we're going to need those clearing and chainsaw people to climb those hills where those machines can't go. That opportunity is going to exist. Those are the occupational specific training. Not quite 4 months on all of them, but enough to get a person going. For the ones that aren't the complete full months and 4 months in Tier 2, some of those jobs will actually start right away. So some of the clearing is going to begin next summer. Like, it's going to be literally graduate, go to work. In terms of the occupational specific, in terms of these are your Red Seal, Tier 3. These are your Red Seal trades. Red Seal carpenters, Red Seal electrical, plumbers, welders. We're looking for 12 to 13 people in each of those programs. Cement finisher. Didn't really understand how big of a role that was going to be until we sat down with the laborers union this week. And it was cemented into us pretty good how important that role is going to be. There's 1,200 towers that are going to be built. 1,200 towers amongst that line that are all going to need cement support structures of some design. And we just don't want any Tom, Dick, or Harry coming there with some plywood and screws and getting these things ready to go. The big one for us, power line technicians. Sam's alluded that we've had some successes already. Speaking on behalf of Supercom, we have 2 individuals in Sudbury right now at the line crew ground support training program. It's the last one that they're running. We're hoping to secure creating our own school in Thunder Bay. We've had some discussions already. When those guys graduate, they'll be employed by one of a contractor associated with us. They'll begin the process to becoming an apprentice under the power line technician program. We can scratch pretty much, bring that number down to 10. We've got 2 already succeeding. From what we've heard, probably the 2 most successful students in that program right now. We've also just recently employed through Fisher Powerline, and Daryl was supposed to be here tonight, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. Fisher Powerline showed up in Sam's doorstep, and they have nothing to do with us. Sam probably didn't even know Daryl was working, and that they're community members. They're probably related somehow. Walked in and said, "We want to be a part of your project. We just don't know how, when, or where. But this is what we're offering because we want to employ Indigenous people." They offered us 8 positions. We want to hire 4 electricians, 4 linesman apprentices right now, apprentices. We want them from Supercom communities because we want to hire Indigenous people. Daryl's from Red Rock. His company's based out of Alberta. And he's come back to make that offer. And there's no commercial agreement. I don't even think any of our board members other than Joe and Matt have met Daryl. There's nothing that connects us, but that's industry coming to us and saying, we want to help your people because of this project that's coming. And Daryl's a really good resource to have because Daryl explains this as being a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They'll never build another east-west tie in anyone's lifetime that's here tonight. This thing will be up there for 70 years before they build another one. That's how long the existing line's been in place, right? So this is a once-in-a-lifetime. This is going to start people's careers, and this is going to jumpstart some economic activity in the area. So those are the positions that we're presently looking to train. This is subject to change based on the needs assessment that we're going to be doing over the next 2 months, where we sit down with the individuals and say, who do we have? Maybe we're going to have 26 carpenters. Maybe we won't have any plumbers. But these are all identified required positions for the project. So we know we're not going to get 244th from the communities. There isn't 244 unemployed, underemployed, considering a career change. It just doesn't exist. That number is high for the 6 Supercom communities. So we have to come up with a priority list so that we can continue to maintain our 20% Indigenous employment and our targets, right? First and foremost, Supercom community band member, regardless of location. Could be in Toronto, could be in New Mexico, could be in Marathon. They get utmost priority. It's about bringing our people back to our communities and training them in a career and putting them back into the wild to get them out there. Secondly would be a Supercom community spouse or other First Nation band member residing in a Supercom community. We have non-native spouses, and those people are community supporters. They're a part of our community. Their current employment feeds and houses our children. So why would we not include them and give them a priority in this opportunity that exists? Other First Nation band members residing in Supercom communities, we could have somebody from Kanawaki living in our community or somebody from Arrowland. They're part of the community. Why would we not include them? It's about helping our people, right? The next class is the other near proximates. I'm going to butcher this, I should have brought it up. So part of the engagement when Ontario came out with this was they said, there's the 6 proximate First Nations, and then there's the non or near proximate communities. Are you bringing it up for me? Communities that aren't directly impacted, but close enough that should be considered for economic opportunities that are close by them. So they actually provided a list to the bidders, and they include, let me see, the Ojibways of Garden River, the Ojibways of Batchewana, Missinaba Cree, Lake Nipigon Ojibwe, Rocky Bay, Sandpoint, Kanogaming, Long Lake 58. The other 4 are other. Those community members can apply for that training. Go to your closest First Nation, right? So Long Lakes will go to Lake Helen and Pester Sam. I'm in Thunder Bay, so I'm pretty good. I'm not going to be. They'll hold a priority within the training that we're going to provide. Other First Nation band member, like this project is grand. I mean, you're talking 1,000 people years of employment. Over a 2-year construction program, at peak, 660 people will be engaged on this directly. We're not talking about indirects. We're not talking about the people that are employed at Canadian Tire, the boom that's going to happen there because of the influx of activity. Just the people on the line, 660 people. So, if there's a person that's from the northern Manitoba that wants to get into it and there's an opportunity for us to help them, why not? Because it's not just about local, it's not just about region, it's about national building of skills of our people. So we're going to include those as well. We're going to hit 244 doing this. And then there's other. Other, we look at the communities of Wawa, White River, Duberville, Marathon, Terrace Bay, Scriber. Those communities rely upon us to continue their economic engines just as much as we rely upon them to continue to provide food, necessities, things that we need to live day by day. So we would allow, or we would accommodate anyone interested, as well as the other forced entities upon us, the 4 Métis councils that exist in the area. Red Sky Independent, Superior North Shore, Greenstone Métis, and Thunder Bay Métis. They're Indigenous people as recognized by the government. We have to include them. They've fought us. They've fought to exclude us on this project. They've fought to take our shares away from us. So we're not going to turn a blind eye to them, but we're not going to give them the same amount of standing as other First Nation people that we recognize as being First Nation people. So, locations. So this is about building people up. Tier 1 training is going to be completed in the communities. Upon development of this plan, it was originally envisioned to be each community would get 2 training sessions of 16 people each. Thunder Bay would get 4 because of the high amount of Supercom people living in Thunder Bay, as they thought about then. Sam and I came on and immediately asked a question, what about all the people from Mobert and Mishpecotton that live in the Sioux? We have people that live in the Sioux. So now, as part of the needs assessment, we'll be looking at delivering Tier 1 training from Sudbury, or from Sault Ste. Marie straight through to Thunder Bay. Some communities may not be able to adequately host a session, i.e. Mishpecotton and Paceplat. They just may not have 16 people there to do it economically or feasible. But maybe a combination of Pick River, Pick Mobert, and Paceplat, where we commute people in. Or maybe we send people from Paceplat to Nipigon. Or maybe Mishpecotton people can commute to whatever. That's all going to be a part of the assessment, but we do know from Sault Ste. Marie to Thunder Bay, January 1st, or whatever that first Monday is, 244 people will be starting Tier 1 across the North Shore. Tier 2 and 3, when you start getting into the specific trades, it's too difficult and not cost effective to split up heavy equipment mechanic amongst the 6 communities. Everybody's going to have to go to Thunder Bay. It's unfortunate, But from an accommodation and meals perspective, it ties in with the end of the college school year. We will put people up in the dorms, and they'll have the cafeteria for their disposal for meals. It'll allow us to deliver the programs very effectively. But part of that, and part of the interesting stuff that Sam and I get to do, is we get to look at those programs and say, how do we bring them back to the communities just for a taste? Just to inspire the people that say didn't take part in this, that may want to do it in the future, or maybe if we can do another reiteration of this somehow, how do we get them into it? So the one project that I like to use is Mobert. Mobert has a road that's in their community, connects up to the old 700 series, I believe it is. It's about 12 kilometers long, but it hasn't been used in about 30 years. It's grown in, washed out. To get to their power projects, you have to go to White River, travel down. It takes about an hour and 20 minutes, I'm told, or something like that. If they were to rehab that road, it would cut their commute time down to less than 20 minutes, apparently. So bringing in the mechanical harvesters for a week, let them cut that road out. Bringing in the surveying program, come in and survey that road, tell us what we need to rehab it. Bringing in the heavy equipment operators so that they're not cruising around in Hockwell's pit, moving dirt from one end of the pit to the other. They'll come out and part of their course will teach them how to put in culverts, how to build roads. And the people of that community will see other people from communities, their own people, doing what the training is supposed to do. Inspiring, that's what it's about. Getting people to see the successes that we're going to have. Every community does a housing project almost annually, subdivision of some sort. Bringing the power line technicians in, those guys, the linesmen, to run a new power line for a subdivision as a part of their course, or install some transformers, things along those lines, so you can see somebody from your community. Maybe Willie Jr. will come back. We'll have him up in the community. An example, here's somebody